It is disappointing that despite our best efforts, that the national policy statement on Heathrow expansion was approved by the House of Commons. I firmly believe this is the wrong approach. As you'll recall, when I appeared before the Assembly last month, I announced that I intended to play a part in a legal challenge to the national policy statement, the NPS. I can tell the Assembly this morning that this process is now underway and that a formal pre-application protocol letter has now been submitted to the government. This sets out the overarching legal grounds of the case and requests key documents. Officers are working closely with their counterparts of the 5 boroughs with whom we are joint claimants, namely Hammersmith and Fulham, Hillingdon, Richmond, Wandsworth and Windsor and Maidenhead. Air quality will be central to the case, noting the dire impact of Heathrow on our legal obligations to address this public health crisis of toxic air. Noise, surface access and climate change will also likely feature. Given the dire noise, air quality and surface access impacts of Heathrow expansion and the failure of the NPS to adequately address these concerns, we believe there is merit in the legal case. I remain committed to opposing such a short-sighted decision which would have dire consequences for the health and quality of life of Londoners.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'm really proud that we as an Assembly and you, our Mayor, are united in our opposition against a third runway at Heathrow. It would be desperately damaging to the lives of hundreds of thousands of Londoners. Now, after the Commons vote on the third runway on the 25th of June, you tweeted that it was the wrong decision. Do you have a message for the 10 Conservative and 17 Labour London MPs that voted in support of the third runway?
I think they're wrong. It's not party political, by the way, and it's worth noting, Chair, through you, that the 5 boroughs involved are of different sizes, different political persuasions, and are united in relation to our concerns. But also there's one borough outside of London as well that understands these concerns. And I think they've got it wrong. Look, we all understand the importance of jobs, growth and prosperity. We all understand the importance of London being open to business. Heathrow's not the answer. No one's anti-Heathrow. I suspect those of us who are against the expansion, we're anti-expansion. And that's why it's important for those MPs who, in my view, wrongly believe Heathrow's the answer to reflect upon actually the consequences of runway 3 at Heathrow.
Thank you. Now, I'm really glad in your initial answer that you mentioned that the grounds for the legal case include noise and pollution, but also that you include climate change as one of the grounds of your legal challenge. Will you give climate change as much weight as pollution and noise in the joint legal action? It is one of the strongest arguments.
I just say this, as somebody who used to be a lawyer, doing what your client tells you is not always the best answer in relation to winning a case. So we'll be guided by the legal advice, and what I suspect we'll do, Caroline, is pursue those lines of argument which we have best chance of winning the case on.
Okay, so, but you must be aware that for any airport expansion in the UK to be consistent with our climate change targets, sectors such as transport, building and agriculture need to cut their carbon emissions by at least 80%. But according to the Committee on Climate Change, that's just not happening. Now, I don't know if you're aware of the work of Plan B, who are an environmental charity who are currently taking the government to court because the UK's carbon targets are based on 2 degrees warming and not the 1.5 degrees, which is based on the Paris Climate Agreement. Would you meet with Plan B so they can tell you about the significance of climate change in their legal case and the relevance that it may have for your joint legal action with the boroughs?
Chair, I'd be keen for either Shirley or myself to meet with them, sooner rather than better. I thought you meant the singer.
Yes, sooner rather than later, because you need, yes, that's absolutely fantastic. Now, the other question is about Gatwick expansion, because if Heathrow is not happening, is it really, if we say, Heathrow shouldn't happen, is it really okay to be dumping the noise and pollution on the people living around Gatwick? Because they're outside of London.
Well, I think unfortunately Gatwick's off the table. My point in relation to Gatwick is actually that if the argument is, and I think the argument is a good one, that there is a need for increased aviation capacity in this part of the country, in the southeast of England, there is an alternative. It's cheaper, it would happen far quicker. There are nowhere near the air quality and noise pollution concerns there are with Heathrow. I think Heathrow is 2 million people affected by noise pollution. And so there is an alternative there which the government could pursue. They've chosen not to pursue Gatwick and are going for Heathrow, so let's wait and see what happens with that.
But, Mr Mayor, if we're talking about climate change, you know, the climate change argument against Heathrow, it also applies against Gatwick. Now, your environment strategy says that you will work with other global city leaders through the C40 to support the implementation of the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, people are looking for climate leadership. We've seen record-breaking temperatures in London. We're seeing climate breakdown. We've seen the Wanstead Flats fire, grass fire, really, you know, frightening changes. Will you consider inviting your C40 counterparts to join you in a joint pledge for no more airport expansion and actually using existing airport capacity better?
Well, I spent a lot of time talking to colleagues in C40. As you know, I'm the vice chair of C40. The point about we mustn't mistake the Heathrow concerns, though. It's not just climate change. It's one of the number of factors: air quality, noise, the surface transport links, the public transport links, and climate change. There are a number of different reasons why there are concerns with Heathrow. But I accept the case that the argument's been made for increasing aviation capacity in the southeast of England. I'm not somebody who says no more increase in relation to aviation capacity anywhere in the world.
Okay, I suspect that's incompatible with the climate change argument, but I'm out of time now, so I'm going to have to leave it there.
Thank you very much.